Year 9, option 3. Thank you very much for waiting for this video. It's quite, I don't know how to say, but I feel awkward doing this. However, I need to do this so that you can further understand the activities that I've sent you for the past couple of days, which is mainly about coral reefs and mangrove swamps. The purpose of this video is for me to supply your knowledge and to make sure that you understood what you have answered in the activities that I've sent. And also, this is very important because this may come out of your IGCSE examination when you go to year 10. So let's get started. So coral reef. A coral reef is a ridge of rock near the surface of the sea, which is formed by the growth and deposit of corals, which is made up of calcium carbonate. You may not be able to see corals here in Laos because these things, or these living things, only live in a certain type of environment, and that environment is not here in Laos. We will be looking into those information, or the places where coral reefs will grow when we into the next few slides that I'm gonna go through with all of them later on. Most of the coral reefs live along the 30 degrees latitude north and south of the equator. And if you look at the map, if this is the map of the world, north, or 30 degrees north, will be here, and 30 degrees south will be here. So along these parallel lines, these dotted areas are the places where coral reefs would form. And as you can see, there is not much near the poles in the Arctic Circle and the Antarctica. And later on, again, you will find out why they live only along this area. So we have 3 types of reefs, okay? And in this slide, you will see the 3 main types. We have the barrier reefs, we have the fringing reefs, and the atolls, okay? You will know these 3 main types depending on how they appear, how they look from a bird's eye view, okay? Barrier reefs is parallel to the shoreline, separated by a channel of water. Okay, there is a separation from land, could be a lagoon, and then you have the reef, okay? While fringing reefs are the one that touches the island or the land. So there is no separation from the mainland towards the coral reefs. While the third one is the atoll. If you look at from a bird's eye view, or if you are riding a plane or a helicopter, you will see that it forms a ring, or it forms a circular lagoon, or a big body of water in between those reefs. Okay. Let's try this one. This is a type of coral reef, and what do you think is this? An atoll, a barrier, or a fringing? So this is an atoll. It creates a circular or a ring with a great amount of water in the middle. While this one, on the other end, it says parallel. It means it is separated or similar in shape with the reef, but it has a body of water separating them. Parallel lines are non-touching lines, so they're not touching each other. There's the mainland here, and you have the barrier reefs in here, okay? While this one in the middle is the fringing reef, because it touches directly towards the land, Okay, so how do they form? Now you will notice that this is a succession from a volcanic land or a volcanic island. Remember, we talked about islands during the tectonic plates lesson. And from a volcanic island like this one, you will see that a volcano is making the land. And along the sides of this island, you will see fringing coral reefs. A fringing coral reef again is touching the mainland itself. However, after many years of erosion and the movement of the tectonic plates, this mainland may disintegrate, or it may go deeper, it may be eroded, and it creates a body of water around the land as it goes sinking. So the previous fringing reef will become a barrier reef. It remains, but the land in between is starting to disintegrate at the bottom. So you will see the land now is far away from the fringing reef that it was before. So from a fringing reef, it is separating itself from the land. It's now creating what we call a barrier reef. Okay, are you still following? So we have the fringing reef that touches the mainland. The land will start to disintegrate and fall into the bottom, and then the land becomes smaller, but the fringing reef is still there. But there is now a great amount of water in between the land and that fringing reef. Now it's becoming a barrier reef. Okay? And after many millions of years, when all of this island become disintegrated and eroded, there is not much land in the middle anymore. It's now just a circular formation of coral reefs. Now this is what we call an atoll. So as I mentioned a while ago, it is a succession. It starts from being an island with a fringing reef, like this one in A. And then after thousands of years of erosion and disintegration of rocks, the land becomes separated from the reef. Now, this fringing reef is very far away from the land. It has become a barrier reef, which is parallel, non-touching to the mainland. And the last one, as it continues to disintegrate and then erode and move downwards, the island is now gone, but the reef still remains, giving us a circular pattern, or just becoming a hollow in between, which is now what we call an atoll. I hope you're still following, guys. So a while ago, there are corals that I mentioned. Corals will need to have a certain type of condition that for them to grow. And here are the conditions that help them grow better. Number one is temperature. The temperature must be between 23 to 25 degrees Celsius. So if we go back to the map, you will see here that most of them lives along the 30 degrees north and south of the equator, because these areas are warmer waters. Okay, if you would go towards the freezing areas like the Antarctic or the Arctic oceans, you will not be able to see any corals because it's not a good place for them because of temperature. And they can only grow in the depths of water of less than 25 meters. Why? Because light is needed. Okay? There are certain types of small plants that is needed for the growth of these corals, and they need to photosynthesize. They need to use light for them to grow. So these plants need to create their own food through photosynthesis. And when they create foods, the corals would eat them for them to grow. So as long as there is light and the algae or the tiny plants will grow, then the corals will continue to grow. And they only live in salt water, not in fresh water, but in salt waters. Um, the water needs to be having less sediments or less materials, because these small materials or sediments may trap the light, and when there is no light, there will be no photosynthesis for the algae, so there will be no food for the corals. And corals have small tubes or small circles, and when sediments would go into those small circles, they will not be able to grow as well. So the water needs to have less sediments. And also, they need to have lots of waves going on, because when there's waves happening, it gets oxygen from the atmosphere, and oxygen again is needed for these corals to live. Oxygen must be abundant. And corals must have enough water to cover them out, because if it's low tide and they're exposed to too much air, they will not be able to live. Too much air is suicide for them. Okay? So those are the things that you need to know about corals. And the most importantly are the three types of coral reefs, which is again fringing, barriers, and atolls. Now let's move on to mangroves or mangroves. Okay, mangroves are plants, and here's a photo of a mangrove, by the way. I'm not sure if you have seen this, but if you have gone through a coastal area or been to beaches, there are some swamps or salt marshes where these mangroves would live. So a mangrove is a tropical tree. When you say tropical, it lives near along the tropic areas, near the latitude or the equator, to have a certain amount of temperature for them to live. And they are shrubs. They're not really tall trees, but just plants that need to grow in intertidal zones. When you say intertidal zones, these are places that have high tides and low tides. High tides, you will not be able to see their roots, and low tides, you will see them. Low energy, it means not much of a wave. Unlike corals, they need too much waves. For mangroves, waves are not needed. And they need a very shallow amount of water and a calm or estuarine or very calm environment. Okay, so as you can see in this photo, you see that there is low tide, the water is calm, there's not much energy going on, and there are mud everywhere. So it's very important for these mangroves to grow. So mangrove swamps are places where it's dominated by mangroves. You will see a lot of mangroves living in there. You will see their roots clinging to somewhere. You have muds and many types of animals along these swamps. And similar to coral reefs, mangrove swamps are also found along coastlines along the tropical that are mainly between 30 north and south of the equator. Again, the reasons why is that they need to have a certain amount of temperature of the water for them to live better. Take note that mangroves cannot live in cold places. And these types of plants are, they need to have again a certain type of environment for them to live. They cannot live on just dry land. They cannot live on very wet land. It has to be somehow enough, and they have adapted to this type of situation. So what are their adaptations? Number one, they can live with low oxygen. High oxygen are places with a lot of waves going on, but here they are adapted to getting not enough oxygen, but they can still grow. Remember that plants also need oxygen to live, okay? Not just carbon dioxide. Their roots can filter salt from the water. Okay, some plants cannot live in salt water because it would shrink them. It would take away the water from the bodies of the plants. By here, their roots can just get water and not let salt come in. So that means salt are all out of the plants, only water will be coming in because you have special types of roots. They can also limit water loss because the stoma and the leaves can prevent them from further transpiration. They can have enough water in their bodies and not lose them too much. Mangroves can also absorb minerals and nutrients directly from the air, like iron and many other atmospheric gases that is very essential or important for them to live. Their roots and their bodies can absorb them not only from the soil but also from the air. And special to these plants is that their seeds, even though they have not been taken out from the plant, already are starting to grow or germinated. It means that when you take a seed of mangroves from their tree, you will see that it has already roots from in them. So when they drop, they would actually start to live on their own. They can be sent to many places and then grow from there. They can even be dried out or live without water for a year, and then you start to plant it again with water, it will start to grow. And then they have special roots that when you put them anywhere else or any type of plants or soil that are very good for them to grow, it would start to hook and lodge their roots in the soil, and they will be ready to grow. So not all plants are like this. Plants will simply die with salt water. Plants will simply die with less oxygen. But these types of plants are very well adapted to these types of environment. And it's very important for us to understand the roles of these mangroves in our ecosystem. One is that they help stabilize our shorelines. It stops erosion and protect the shorelines from being broken down from harsh say for example flooding or storms. It would keep them intact. Okay, it means that the roots of the plant will hold the soil in place and not be transported to other places. They also provide breeding and nursing grounds for marine animals. If you at some point were able to go to mangrove sites, you will see crabs, you will see smaller fishes that are born in here. Even types of birds would live in the branches and trees of these. Crocodiles, monkeys even would live in mangroves areas. And of course, it will be a source of food. I remember watching a video where people would literally cut the roots of the mangroves and then open it, and inside there are worms and long slimy things that they would eat. So it's a food or a source of raw material, food for them. Some people would use the roots and the leaves as medicine to certain types of illnesses, and of course the leaves and the trunk and the other parts of these will serve as raw materials in creating chairs, in as a fuel as well, and many other uses. So mangroves are very important. So I'd like you to acknowledge your lesson. I want to make sure that you listen throughout this video. And this is not a test, but I want to make sure that you have seen each of or everything that I have explained in this video. So you have to answer this type of question, get a piece of paper, answer this question. Can mangroves grow in Laos? Yes or no, and then explain why you think so. And once you finish answering that, you can take a photo of it and send them to think wave. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. See you soon.